Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the San Martin SN004-G limited edition. This watch is available from watchdives.com for $239 US. You can use the discount code WR4K to get $10 US discount off any watch over $250 US on watchdives.com. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the other items one gets with a piece. So the watch comes in this black plastic Pelican style case. I'll show you the interior. As you can see, both halves of the Pelican case are lined with two foam panels, which does a good job of protecting the watch in shipping from any damage. I like this Pelican style case. They're very practical and durable, and one can also use them as a travel case. With regards to the other items, this is the owner's instruction manual, clear concise diagrams. The instructions are in English, and it details the operation of the movement use, which is the Seiko NH35A automatic. This is the plastic warranty card that comes with the watch. Now, usually San Martin watches are covered by a 2-year international warranty, but however, if you purchase the watch from watchdives.com, they are covered by a 3-year international warranty, so one is getting an additional 12 months of cover, which is very good. This is the stainless steel spring bar tool that comes with the watch, and as you can see, 2-prong fork at one end and a push pin at the other end. Solid stainless steel nailed shank, finished to a good standard. And lastly, one also gets this stainless steel 1.6mm flathead screwdriver for resizing the screw pins in the bracelet. So, with regards to the specifications of the piece, this is the San Martin SN004-G limited edition. The limited edition version of the 004 is available in two colour options, black and blue respectively. I have previously reviewed the black version, so if you haven't seen that, please feel free to check it out. It's also available with two bracelet options, a rivet link bracelet or alternatively the oyster style bracelet that you're looking at here. Of the two versions, the rivet and oyster style bracelet, the oyster style is my personal favourite, although this is subjective. Some collectors actually like the rivet link bracelet because this is an homage to the Tudor Black Bay 58. So what are the differences between this limited edition and the standard 004? Well, if you look closely at the 12 o'clock position, you can see the white San Martin hex emblem is printed on the dial versus applied with the silver applied hex. Personally, I prefer the printed hex, and also if you look closely at the 6 o'clock position, you can see it says 200m/660 feet. Now, on the standard 004, it just has 200m for 200 meters, but this one has 200m equals 660 feet. The other notable difference is that this is powered by the NH35A automatic. Other versions of the 004 are powered by the PT5000 or alternatively the SW200-1 respectively. So with regards to the dimensions, we have a 38.5mm case diameter, we have a lug-to-lug measurement of 46mm, we have a thickness of 13.3mm, and we have a lug width of 20mm. The oyster style bracelet tapers from 20mm at the lugs down to 16mm at the 2-button push clasp. As you can see, the 2-button push clasp is signed to a high standard with an applied San Martin hex. Beautiful luster to the brushed satin finishing to the body of the clasp, and also beautiful luster to the flanks to the clasp. 4 micro adjustment holes. Now, often I'm critical in my reviews of watch brands only having 3 micro adjustment holes. 4 is optimum because one can fine tune the length of the bracelet to get the perfect fit. So San Martin deserve full credit for this. Beautiful mirror polished bevel to the edge of the body of the clasp and also the end of it. No sharp edges, no burrs, and also the corners are nicely deburred. There's no sharp points to the corners. The 2-button push San Martin clasp is one of my personal favourites. I absolutely love it, and it's one of the best clasps I have seen regardless of a watch's price point. So with regards to the rest of the specification, we have a double dome sapphire crystal with blue tinted AR coating on the underside. And as you can see, when I tilt the piece at an oblique angle, you can see the blue tinted AR coating does an outstanding job of reducing the glare and the highly reflective nature of the silver applied indices and this silver mirror polished snowflake hands. So as this is a Black Bay 58 homage, it does a good job of replicating the Black Bay 58 dial layout, which is the classic Submariner maxi dial layout. The applied indices are finished to a good standard, good symmetry to the dial with the absence of a date complication. Also the handset is well proportioned. Often Chinese watch brands make a mistake with the hands. They are too short and often undersized in proportion, but San Martin have got this correct because the snowflake second hand reaches all the way to the minute ticks on the chapter ring, and also the minute hand reaches all the way to the minute ticks. The hour hand also reaches to the applied indices, so the hands are the correct size for the size of the dial. Now, with regards to the dial, this is something I really like about the limited edition version. The printed white San Martin hex, I think that it looks very aesthetically pleasing. I'd also think it balances the dial better to have 200M equals 660 feet at the 6 o'clock position rather than just having 200M as per the standard version of the 004. So dial layout is excellent, legibility is excellent, and the blue tinted AR coating works very well because it complements the blue dial and also the blue ceramic bezel insert. I really like the colour tone match between the blue ceramic insert and also the blue dial, and this is something that San Martin actually do better than Tudor themselves. I have previously reviewed the Tudor Black Bay 58 in blue, and I disliked the matte blue dial on the Black Bay 58 because it doesn't match the midnight blue bezel, which is a darker tone. It's made from aluminium. But San Martin have actually done a better job. If you look at the tone of the blue ceramic and the tone of the dial, they are closer in colour tone, so I actually think this is more aesthetically pleasing than the Black Bay 58 itself, and that's ironic because this is an homage to it. With regards to the bracelet, we've got female pivoted end links. Now, early versions of the 004 used male end links, and then San Martin responded to collector feedback and criticism, and they updated the 004 to using female pivoted end links in the V2. And this version, as you can see, also uses female pivoted end links, and they articulate very well. The benefit of using female versus male pivoted end links is that, as you can see, it allows the end of the oyster style bracelet to articulate more, so the end of the bracelet pulls snug and tighter to the wrist, and therefore one gets a better fit. The female pivoted end links are a good tight fit to the head of the piece. The profile is well machined, no sharp edges, no burrs, no play in the end links. And also the bracelet is finished to a very high standard, beautiful lustre to the 316L grade stainless steel. Flawless mirror polishing to the flanks of the bracelet, and we've also got screw pins rather than push pins, which would be a cost-cutting measure. So I'll show you the interior to the clasp. As you can see, solid milled 316L grade stainless steel, brush satin finish to the top side, underside and flanks. No extra play in the hinge pins, so it's a very well executed clasp. And as I've detailed, I really like that it has 4 micro adjustment holes to get the perfect fit. Snaps shut with a nice positive click, and also deploys with nice firm resistance to the 2 button push triggers. With regards to the case back, it's solid 316L grade stainless steel. One can see the concentric CNC lathe tool machining, and I like the fact it's sterile as per the Tudor Black Bay 58, but with the Black Bay 58 they do engrave some specification and the reference number of the piece. The benefit of using a perfectly flat and smooth sterile screw down case back is that it does feel very comfortable against the wrist when one wears the piece for long periods of time, such as 8 to 12 hours per day. Flawless finishing to it. I like the concentric CNC lathe tool machining, and also the edge of it is finished around the circumference with coin edge finishing to unscrew it. So very well executed sterile case back. The female pivoted end links are very well machined, as you can see, and a good tight fit to the case, and the underside to the head of the piece is also finished to a very high standard. With regards to the crown, it's solid 316L grade stainless steel, gear tooth profile to it rather than coin edge finished. Now, the one negative to the watch is San Martin have elected to use their S symbol on the screw down crown rather than the San Martin hex. I would prefer to see the San Martin hex used. However, this is subjective. Some collectors like the S symbol, but I think it looks like a US dollar symbol, and I think the emblem should be a hex because that would be continuity of design. It would match the San Martin hex on the dial and also the San Martin hex on the clasp. Really, the S doesn't fit with those because it doesn't match, and the San Martin hex would be better looking. So let's test the screw down crown execution. The screw down crown provides an effective hermetic seal to 200 meters of water resistance, which is strong specification. Absolutely silky smooth. It's got firm resistance to the threading, but however the friction isn't due to the interface of the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. The friction is caused by the 2 rubber O-rings. This has a rubber O-ring inside the crown and a second rubber O-ring inside the crown tube, and therefore one can feel it's a good tight hermetic seal. So I don't mind the friction because it's indicative that this has an effective hermetic seal to 200 meters, a nice tight fit between the crown and also the stem itself. So with regards to the action, absolutely silky smooth. In the first position, it's the manual wind position, and one can manually wind the NH35A automatic to top it up to its maximum 40-hour power reserve. One can feel the tension in the mainspring gradually building up. Absolute pleasure to manually wind the NH35A. I prefer manually winding a 35A versus the PT5000 or alternatively the SW200-1. I think it's more pleasant to use. So as this is a 35A rather than the 38, it does have a phantom date setting position. The first click on the crown is the date setting position. The date wheel is present beneath the dial, so one can feel it clicking over when one rotates the crown anti-clockwise, and this is subjective, but many collectors dislike the 35A versus the 38. I think that San Martin would be better using the 38 because this doesn't have a date window, there's no date complication. But however, the 35A is a reliable, well-proven workhorse movement. Pulling it out to the second click position is the time setting position, and as you can see, looking at the Snowflake second hand, I have now hacked the movement. It's possible to set the time precisely to the second. Good firm resistance to the 35A, no backplay, clockwise and anti-clockwise, absolute pleasure to set the time. Pushing it back in, it's got a nice positive click, and that restarts the movement. You can see the second hand begins to sweep around the dial once again. So really the negative to the 35A is it runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 3 Hz versus the PT5000, which runs at 28,800 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 4 Hz. So looking at the second hand running at 3 Hz, you can see it has a slight stutter or judder as it moves around the dial. It doesn't sweep as smoothly as a 4 Hz movement such as the 5000 or alternatively the SW200-1. So again, this is subjective. Some collectors don't mind the 3 Hz sweep with a slight tick or judder. Personally, I prefer smoother sweeps of 4 Hz movements, but one can live with the 35A, but that's something to note. So let's test screwing it back down. Immediate thread pickup, this is outstanding screw down crown execution, and San Martin deserve full credit for this because on the 004 they get this consistently correct. It has a silky smooth screw down crown execution, and it's easier to push in the 35A screw down crown versus the PT5000 or the SW200-1. They have firmer resistance. One has to really push in the crown on a PT5000 movement, but with a 35A there's less resistance. The crown feels less spring loaded, so one can easily engage the screw down crown with the stainless steel stem. Right, so I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now I have sized this bracelet, and the thing to note is the bracelet has enough links in it to fit a maximum 8-inch wrist, but as you'll know from my previous reviews, I like to size my bracelets loose so that I can always fit an index finger underneath the bracelet and clasp at all times, which is the correct sizing method because it allows for wrist expansion in warm weather or when one is active. So I have actually added an additional link to the bracelet, and I've moved it up to position 1 of 4 micro adjustments, and that gives me the desirable fit. I can fit my index finger underneath the clasp, but it also feels loose enough to allow for wrist expansion. So 8 inches is the maximum wrist size, but however for the majority of collectors with a 6 to 7 inch wrist, you're actually going to remove 2 or even 3 links from the bracelet, and therefore this isn't going to be concerned. But if you have a 7 to 8 inch wrist, bear in mind that 8 inches is the maximum size that this bracelet will support with all the links. So as I've detailed, the female pivoted end links articulate very well, and they work better than the V1, which had male end links, because they pull the end link in the oyster style bracelet closer to the wrist. As you can see, very snug fit. The other thing I like about it is the proportions. 46mm lug to lug measurement gives a very snug fit. In terms of comfort level and feel good factor, it feels very similar to the Tudor Black Bay 58, which I previously reviewed. It also feels very well balanced at 147 grams with all the links in the bracelet and even an additional link added. As you'll know from my previous reviews, I consider circa 150 grams for a 39 or 40mm piece to be the sweet spot. It gives a nice feeling of comfort level, but also a nice feeling of heft. One feels the wrist presence. Now this is 38.5, so just under 39, and very close to the Tudor Black Bay 58 proportions, which this is an homage to. I really like the fact that this is only 13.3, even though it has a double domed sapphire crystal, as you can see, so it will easily slip underneath your shirt cuff. Circa 13mm is the sweet spot, and it's not too tall, doesn't feel top heavy, and I like the fact it will easily slip underneath a shirt cuff if you wear business shirts. The The taper of the oyster style bracelet is perfect, 20 tapering down to 16. So I really like the proportions. 46 is slightly short. I consider 48 to be the perfect lug to lug measurement, but 46 is particularly suitable if you have a smaller wrist of 6 to 7 inches. So really this will fit you regardless of whether you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist or a 7 to 8 inch wrist respectively. Blue tinted AL coating is doing an excellent job of reducing the glare and the reflective nature of the silver snowflake hands and also the silver applied indices. Absolutely gorgeous piece to look at on wrist. So I love the proportions of it, I love the feeling of it, it's very comfortable to wear for long periods of time, such as 8 to 12 hours per day. Right, so let's discuss the bezel. As you can see, gear tooth profile to the bezel. The circumference of the gear tooth bezel is mirror polished and the internals of the teeth are brushed satin finished, and they've done an excellent job because there's no sharp edges, no burrs to the gear tooth bezel. I prefer the gear tooth bezel to this rather than using a coin edge bezel. I think that the gear tooth bezel is more aesthetically pleasing. Now on a Black Bay 58 it has a coin edge bezel which is lower profile, but I prefer the more aggressive look of the gear tooth bezel, and it's also taller in profile. The blue ceramic bezel insert is very well executed and infilled with white paint to a high standard, and as I've discussed, the tone of the blue perfectly matches the tone of the blue dial. It's a royal blue dial and also a royal blue bezel, but in low light conditions actually looks like navy blue, and I like the fact it changes in tone and it's just absolutely gorgeous to look at. So let's test the bezel action. 120 click unidirectional bezel. Nice loud audible clicks which are very satisfying. I like the heavy ratcheting mechanism to it. It feels very similar to a Seiko bezel action in terms of resistance. Lighter than a Steinhardt Ocean 139, which you may be familiar with. Very similar to a Seiko 5KX or a Seiko Turtle bezel action. The resistance feels even all the way through the 360 degrees of rotation. No lateral side-to-side play whatsoever. No back play whatsoever. So this is 10 out of 10 perfect bezel execution. I'll just check the alignments. Absolutely perfect. So no lateral side-to-side play, no back play, and perfect alignments between the triangle and lume pip at 12 o'clock and the 12 o'clock index on the dial. So San Martin deserve credit for this because it's something they get consistently correct. The bezel execution is outstanding. Right, so let's do a lume test and we'll see how the lume performs when it's charged up to the absolute maximum. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to the absolute peak. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, it has not disappointed. This has actually exceeded my expectations. I previously reviewed the Tudor Black Bay 58, and I can tell you there is no discernible difference in the performance of the BGW9 Superluminova used on this 004 and the Black Bay 58, which this is an homage to. Exactly the same brightness. In terms of brightness, it's equal in performance to the very best of Rolex Chromalight or alternatively Seiko Lume-Bright, which are some of the best Superluminovas used in the watchmaking industry. As you can see, the benefit of using snowflake hands is that it allows for 5 to 6 layers of BGW9 to be applied, and also large areas of lume plot, and also the applied indices with the maxi dial layout of the Submariner and also the Black Bay 58. They allow for 5 to 6 layers to be infilled into the applied indices. The lume pip on the ceramic bezel insert is also glowing very brightly, and it will continue to glow for a good length of time. So really this is 10 out of 10 BGW9 Superluminova performance, and I'm pleased to see that San Martin haven't cut any corners with regards to the quality of the lume they're using, and also they're not using the cost-cutting production method of using 2 to 3 layers as per other Chinese brands. They are clearly using 5 to 6 layers, which is the very best. So performance is 10 out of 10, outstanding, and I really like the snowflake on the second hand. As you can see, it sweeps around the dial, so just absolutely gorgeous to look at, and really equal in quality to a Black Bay 58 or a Rolex Submariner, which I've previously owned. Right, so let's discuss the movement used. You'll all be familiar with the Seiko NH35A automatic. So the 004, the standard version, is usually available with a PT5000 or alternatively the SW200-1. The benefit of using the 35A is that it makes the retail price less expensive, and I think San Martin have made the correct choice in making this limited edition with the 35A versus using the PT5000. So the 35A runs at has 24 joules and it runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 3 Hz. It has hand binding and hacking, which is used for complications. The stated accuracy of the 35A is -20 to +40 seconds per day. Now, I'm pleased to report San Martin are well regulating the 35As they're using. This one is running consistently at +5 seconds per day, which is well within the -20 to +40 stated accuracy. +5 from a 35A is outstanding. Personally, I prefer if they use the 38 because that would delete the phantom date setting position, but however, the 35A is a reliable, well-proven workhorse movement and therefore an acceptable choice. No negatives to it whatsoever. I really like the reliability of it, and they can be regulated to better than -20 to +40. To get +5 really is very impressive. So I think it's a good movement choice. Now, as I've discussed, this is $239, so it reduces the price. If this was PT5000 powered, it would be in excess of $250, so I like that aspect of it. It makes the 004 less expensive. The other thing I like about this piece is, if you look at the rehorts, it's blue rather than being brushed silver. Now, the benefit of using a blue rehort underneath the double dome sapphire crystal is it means it's less reflective. With stainless steel rehorts that are brushed satin finished, they tend to act like a mirror and they bounce the light around underneath the double dome sapphire crystal, but this has blue AR coating and that works very well with the blue rehort because it prevents the light being refracted and reflecting around the dial, and I think it looks very aesthetically pleasing because around the chapter ring with a white minute 6 you can see the rehort is a deep royal blue which matches the dial and also the ceramic bezel insert. So lastly, I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch should meet 2 criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price points. So $239 is the price point. Yes, I consider it to be excellent quality, and yes, I consider it to be excellent value at $239. I'm going to declare this a champagne watch for lemonade money. I like this watch so much, in fact, I have decided to add it to my own personal collection, and that really is the highest compliment I can pay a watch. This is one of the greatest San Martin watches ever made, and they deserve full credit for making an outstanding piece. So I hope you've enjoyed my review of the San Martin SN004-G limited edition. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you very much.